Hey everybody, it's not going to be a very long video today, but it's a piece of information you need to know because there's lots of misconceptions out there in the prepping world as far as like the term fallout. And I'm not talking about the cool TV show that came out. I'm talking about literally the lethal, highly radioactive stuff falling from the sky. And a lot of the misconceptions, by the way, come along the lines of, oh, they say, for fallout, you need to seal up your house with plastic and tape. And as far as like your distance, as long as you're in your house, you're fine, or I want to set up some kind of barrier. And that's not true at all. I mean, honestly, you don't even have to seal up your windows unless there's some really gale force winds coming by. But I think what people are thinking of, and this is where the misconception comes in, is the difference between like soot and ash from the burning fires. Because what happens is when a nuclear detonation happens and all the thermal radiation comes out, any type of like exposed wood and trees and weeds and branches and stuff will catch fire. And just like you see, like you've ever seen like obviously a wilderness fire, a forest fire, even though you have a tree, which is like green wood, the heat gets so much, it causes the next tree to burst into flames, which causes the next tree to burst into flames. The next thing you know, you have these incredibly raging infernos. You've seen these on TV. Well, hopefully you haven't seen it in person. But that's what you see. When we see a thermal radiation from a nuclear detonation, everything within a certain radius, practically speaking, except for like the downtown areas, which are mostly concrete and steel, but all the suburbs and everything that'll actually be hit by this nuclear detonation, all within a radius will turn into this raging inferno. And that raging inferno is dangerous for you and me, even if you're not in the inferno. If you're in the inferno, you will probably not make it. This is what the stats show. And the reason being is, not only is the fire so hot, but you actually found a place to take cover, it literally sucks up the oxygen. People can actually suffocate in this. That's something that's a very real possibility or probability if a nuclear detonation happens. But think about this. We see the mushroom cloud. That cloud's going up, and it's sucking up all the concrete and people and cars and all that stuff into that huge fire mushroom cloud. But everything within that radius is now catching fire, but it's not being sucked up. So really think of it this way. You have two fires. You have the mushroom cloud fire, which is heading up into the atmosphere. Then you have all the area surrounding it, which is like houses burning, cars burning, etc., trees burning. So the mushroom cloud, we'll talk about that one in a minute. We'll see in a little bit mushroom cloud. Let's talk about this fire that's happening right now. It's still a radioactive area, highly radioactive. And all that smoke and ash and soot is going where? Way up in the atmosphere? Not at all. It's going to be spreading along the ground, maybe going up a little bit. And if that heads in your way, that's the stuff you have to worry about when it comes to taping up your windows. Because all that ash and soot and smoke and everything very well could be highly radioactive. So yes, if you see a nuclear detonation go by, but you're outside that zone where your house is going to catch on fire and you're going to be downwind from that, you need to very quickly put up some plastic, some tape. You need to seal off your house because the air itself is going to be carrying highly radioactive particulates in there. You inhale it in, that's even worse, inhaling it in. So the CDC, it's really funny. In this case, they said, well, we recommend a mask for that, but not for other stuff. And it's like, and I'm not getting into talking about the pandemic at all, but during the pandemic, they're like, oh, when we talk about fallout, we don't recommend a mask even. No, what they said was during a nuclear thing, we recommend you wear a mask. And it's like, everybody's like, what? Of course you wear a mask. But for fallout, you don't need it because the soot and ash and everything coming in is going to be highly radioactive. If you breathe that stuff in, that's bad, bad news. And understand that the layers of the atmosphere move different directions and different speeds. So the lower layers, that ash and soot and stuff from the houses and everything on fire may come your direction. But the high up mushroom cloud, oh, it's back now. All of that taken up in the atmosphere. This is literally just nothing but highly melted particulates of everything that was in that city now goes up in the atmosphere, which super cools it. It's called adiabatic cooling. Every time you go up 1,000 feet, it decreases by 5 degrees. If you ever fly, they usually have like the little headrest to tell you the temperature. It's not uncommon to hit 20 below, way up in the atmosphere. When you left down there, it was like 70 degrees outside. Because as you get higher in the atmosphere, it gets colder and colder. So all that superheated stuff that came from that city will now solidify and coagulate and turn into fallout. That's completely different than the ash and stuff that came from the burning parts of the city. The burning parts of the city, you can inhale that stuff. That's bad news. It can come in your house. You need to seal up your house. I mean, or evacuate. I'm not even saying you need to do that, but obviously it's a danger for you to inhale this. The fallout, when it gets way up there and starts coming back down, it comes back down as grains of sand or glass, little tiny beads of glass. You breathing it in is not even a possibility. I know this, you may be like, oh, of course. No, I'm telling you, I'm a nuclear specialist, or at least I was. It's not even a possibility of breathing it in. And that's why people even say the government's like, for fallout, for actual nuclear fallout, that's different than that that soot, that ash and smoke. The fallout that rains down is the little particulates of sand and glass. You won't breathe it in. You don't even have to plastic up your windows. You don't have to. I mean, if it's coming down, and it's just one of those really weird days out in the plains. You ever had those days where just once in a while the wind is just like blustery. It's just like huge. And it will sometimes blow sand in your house. Then you'll have to worry about it. But those days, if you live out in the plains area, for example, that doesn't happen very often, once in a while. So if you're not seeing those blustery days, honestly, just shut your window. You'll be fine. But the fallout that comes down from that, holy moly, that's some dangerous stuff. Not from inhaling it. You're not going to be inhaling it. But literally standing right next to it. That's where the dangerous part comes in for that part. So the first part, the soot and the ash and everything, you need to get away from it. You need to not let it in your house. You certainly don't want to inhale it. But the fallout, the second part, you don't have to worry about inhaling it, but getting near it, it is like so incredibly highly radioactive. That's where the danger comes in. Because when it comes to trying to thwart off radiation, there's three ways we do that: time, distance, and shielding. Some people keep saying they want to build a bunker and such and try to get shielding, and I'm not saying no, but you need 1.3 feet of lead, metal, thick lead. I mean, you actually put it in space is even better, but lead. And if you want concrete, 6 feet of concrete. If you want earth, dirt, we're talking about 15 to 20 feet of dirt to be able to block that radiation. And people will build a bunker. So literally the bunker is, here's some wood over their head, and then they have this much dirt, and there's radiation on top of that dirt. Or the fallout, they don't see it. They don't feel the radiation. They're like, oh, it must be fine. But they're literally getting a lethal dose of radiation from that fallout right in their head. You're going to have a bunker. It's got to be really deep in your yard, really deep. I would say minimum 15 feet. That's really deep. And if you're going to hand dig it, we're talking about collapses, caves, and stuff. So having a bunker may not be your best thing. So what are you going to do? Go to your house, your basement? If you're like in a building, like a high-rise building, being in the center, not on the ground floor because that's where the fallout is below, and not on the top floor because there's fallout on top of the building, but like right in the center there would be the best place. If you have just a house with a basement, in your basement, probably in the center of your basement might be best. If you have a 3 or 4 story house, I mean, if there's not fallout on your roof, maybe toward the top might be a good thing. But your key is not shielding. It's distance. You need to get away from that. And that's why I always talk about the Geiger counter I recommend. I'll link it below. I'm going to be making a video, by the way, how to use this thing. And I've had countless followers buy it. It's fantastic. It's easily good enough to know what you need, because some of these smaller Geiger counters like this, it's inexpensive, will overload. Well, then you're in an area that's bad. You need to get out of that area, because let's say that you're in your basement, and in your mind, you're standing next to this poured concrete wall. Oh, this is a safe place. Right at your Geiger counter. Tick, 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 tick. Oh, no, this is not a good place. And because you're standing next to the fallout, you just don't know it. So being in the center of your basement, so you're as far away from the walls as possible, is going to be your best bet. Or possibly even be, if you have a basement that's kind of like half put on the ground, it might be even on the second floor or the first floor or second, depending on how many floors you have. But either way, instead of trying to find a specific place for it, that's why having the Geiger counter work. It'll tell you where the hot spots are. Stay away from the hot spots. You may have it so the fallout comes down in this direction. So here's your house. It's coming down to the ground here. But on the other side of the house, it's not quite hitting the ground yet. That you may be closer to that area. All right, long story short, here's what it is. And this is the important part. You look at 2 different types of radiations heading your way. On ground level, in the very lower parts of the atmosphere, the stuff that we basically deal with, the soot and the ash and the fires are going to be causing radiation. You can't breathe that stuff in. You do not want that in your house. Seal up your house as fast as possible, if it is possible, because those smoke things are heading your way. It's very dangerous stuff. But the fallout, that rains down from the higher atmospheres as far as sand and glass. And when it falls down, it is highly radioactive. This is really bad stuff. And the best thing you can have, practically speaking, is distance. You can set up shielding, a bunker ahead of time if you want to, but if you don't have one, you need to get distance and have that Geiger counter so you know you can get far away from it. But Don't worry about sealing up your windows unless you have some gale force winds. Don't worry about having a mask on. And that's where the CDC was saying, oh, we recommend a mask during this. Well, yeah, for the smoke and the soot, yes, but for the actual fallout, even a mask is not even required. It's very interesting how all that works. So anyways, I hope this cleared things up instead of made it more confusing for you. I'll link below the Geiger count if you want to pick it up. And of course, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow.